Welcome. I'm John Spooner, Director of Human Spaceflight Operations for the Unlimited Space Agency. Welcome back to UNSA's virtual headquarters, the Space Shed. Okay, so we've got the chat going over here. I'm going to keep checking in on there. Hello to any of you joining us there. We're back for the rest of 2020 with monthly live shows featuring some of the coolest, most brilliant people in space and science. So if you'd like to support us and get reminders for when new shows are happening, please subscribe to the channel here, press the thumbs up button, and everything we do here is for free. So any way that you can support us really helps. Thank you very much. We have a super cool show for you today. So cool that Mini Jon's head teacher has authorized him leaving school early today to join me. So would you please give it up for my co-host? He is my best friend, and of course he is UNSA's first actual astronaut. Welcome to the spaceship, Mini Jon! Hi, MJ. How are you doing today? Oh, that's so good to hear. Hey, how is it being back at school? Yeah, well, I can imagine. You must have really missed seeing everyone. The teachers are amazing. Thank you to all of the teachers. Big up to you and all of the staff that have helped get the schools open again and keeping all of our children very safe there. So we're very excited today because it is International Podcast Day. And to celebrate that, we have released a new podcast. It's my interview with the NASA legend, Apollo 15 astronaut Worden. Al was the command module pilot for NASA's ninth crewed mission to the moon back in 1971, 49 years ago. I know, right? If you'd like to listen to that chat, then just head over to our website, unspaceagency.earth. All of the details are there. Or you can just search up Live from the Space Shed on whatever platform you get your podcasts on. Now, it was a really special conversation with one of NASA's real characters, and Al sadly passed away earlier this year, aged 87. It is sad, Mini Jon, I know, but Al led a super fun, really fulfilling life, and I am delighted that today we are joined by his friend and his European manager. Would you please welcome into the Space Shed, Vix Southgate? Oh, hang on.
Hi, John.
Hiya, Vix. I've put up a... Yeah, there you are. Hiya.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm really good. Lovely. So good for you to join us today. Mini Jon says hello as well.
Hi, MJ.
He's just enjoying actually there. He sees some of his friends in the background there that you've either collected, or I can see Cassie there. Maybe you could introduce Cassie to us, Vix.
Hang on 1 second then.
Here comes Cassie. Hi, Cassie.
Cassie here. Cassie stands for Cosmic Ambassador for Space Science and Engineering. And she comes with me and she meets a lot of inspirational people. So I took her when I first met Al Worden, and she's got his badge there. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
She's also met Buzz Aldrin, who gave her the Mars badge.
That is cool.
And she met Tim Peake as well here, and Helen Sharman.
We've all met Tim Peake. Who hasn't met Tim?
She's brilliant. She comes into junior schools with me as well.
That's very cool. I know you've got different sized Cassies. Cassie comes
yes.
a variety of shapes. Go on. There's a Cassie in a box, I think, isn't there?
There is a Cassie in a box. So I've got these two Cassies. So you can see the difference in size. Yeah. And that's basically because obviously the bigger Cassie weighs more. So this Cassie has a lower weight for payloads. So to go up into space and things like that.
Go up into space or actual space?
So she's not actually been up in space yet, but they have been to the edge of space. And this one here, this mini Cassie, she's even got her spacesuit on. And she got lost for 6 months because the space project that she came back down on got lost.
Oh no, Mini Jon's a bit
GPS
sad.
didn't work because it was in a bad mobile signal area, and then she was found in a farmer's field, so she smells a bit funny these days.
Look, Mini Jon.
So she doesn't go on any more missions.
Yeah, it's fine, MJ. Cassie got found. That's cool, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Because Mini Jon, of course, has been to space as well. Actually, he's been to near space on a mission. In fact, we lost him for a bit. It took us quite a long time to find him when he landed. We found you in a disused BMX park somewhere close to Milton Keynes after your test flight, actually. I know, that was good. And then, of course, Mini Jon has actually been to space, which is a whole other story, which we sometimes tell. But you're here today, Vix. I mean, there are loads of really cool things that you are and that you do. But one of the coolest that you've been able to do in recent years, you were a very good friend to Al Worden, the Apollo astronaut, and his European manager for many years. And we're going to talk to you about World Space Weekend, but let's talk to you about Al first. I mean, how did you first get to meet Al and become good friends with him and become his manager even?
Okay, so it all started, I suppose it all started back in 2010 when I came into the space industry. And I came into the space industry because I wrote a book about Gagarin, which is that book there. And through doing research, I met Francis French, who was the co-author of Al's biography, Falling to Earth. And so through him, he told me when Al was in the country. And so in 2015, he was over in Manchester, and Francis said, go and meet him. He's a really lovely guy, great guy. So I went over, took Cassie with me, obviously, and Francis was absolutely right. He was a great guy, and he met me like an old friend. It was just amazing, and we just clicked, you know how you do with people sometimes. And so from that moment on, we were trying to decide, you know, what we're going to do, how we're going to meet up more, because obviously he's over in the US, I'm over in the UK. And so from that, I sort of said, well, this is my skill set. I can run events, I can organize tours, I can do this, that, and the other. And so we did one event in November 2015 in Oxford. And it was, because that went so well, it was really well done, and it was brilliant. And I'd also created a surprise for him where the Guinness World Record people would come and give him the 2 certificates. And they came and they presented him the two certificates, and he was just blown away. And so that's when he said, you know, do you want to be my European manager? Because it means that if I'm coming this way, you can help organise it, you know, and then we can meet up, we can spend some time together, we can have a load of fun, and he could introduce me to people, and it worked, and it was fantastic.
Oh, I mean, that's my experience of having met Al only the once last year. So warm, so friendly, really very sincerely made you feel like you were his friend as soon as you met him. In fact, I really enjoyed, he told us in that, as part of the podcast, a story about the Guinness World Record event where they presented him with the certificates for being the most isolated person in humanity, or whatever it was. And he was like more interested in, you know, you're from Guinness. Where's the beer?
Yeah, I had to take that beer home with me because he couldn't fit it in his suitcase.
Hey, everyone's a winner.
Exactly.
Yeah. Before we get into, I really want to know a little bit more about what it was like to spend as much time as you did with him. But we have had a question from our public announcement officer, Holly, because she wanted to know, but before you started being like a big deal in STEM, and like you've won awards, the Sir Arthur Clarke Award for education outreach in space. But before that, you were a restorer in stately homes. And I think one of the questions...
looking at my LinkedIn profile, haven't they?
Yeah. But we often ask people, how did you get into doing the work you do? Because now, you know, you're flying Cassie to near space, you're hanging out with astronauts and touring around the world, but you started off in a very different place. How did this come about?
Right. So yeah. So I started off doing historic decorative crafts, which meant that I could do furniture restoration, interior restoration of stately homes, and everything like that. I'm a trained cabinet maker by trade, so master craftsman or woman
That
in
is
this day and age.
so cool.
Um, and I did that for around about 15 years. I can't think
Can't
actually,
possibly have.
but a long
Don't
time.
look old enough.
And sorry.
Sorry, it was meant to be. You don't look old enough, Vix.
Thank you. I've worn well. And so I ended up having a back operation completely unrelated to any of the work that I was doing. And as a result of that, I wasn't able to go back to doing the restoration because doing stately homes, the ceilings are 30 to 50 foot high, so you've got scaffolding, and I wasn't allowed to climb ladders, let alone doing the heavy work and the heavy lifting that I used to do. So I had to change my career quite quickly.
And how did you get to space? I mean, because lots of our agents and cadets, we think, I want to work in space. Vic's job sounds really cool. Also, I'm sure loads of people are going, I want to work restoring stately homes. I'm really sorry that that health meant that you couldn't continue that. But to get to space.
So I kind of took about a year trying to rethink my life, thinking, what's my skill set? What can I do? How have I managed my life up to this point? And the one thing that I do very well is communications, and my marketing and PR of my business when I was stately home restoration, that I actually quite enjoyed that bit. And I thought, I can continue this somewhere else. But it was after my second back operation, and I was laid on the bed, and my daughter was 4 years old at the time, and she came running in from her first day at school, and she jumped on the bed, which is not good when you've had a back operation. But she was so excited to tell me all about her day. And then she laid down next to me and looked up at the ceiling, and she saw a spider, a very tiny spider on the ceiling. And she's like, "Oh, Mummy, there's a spider there. You've got to get rid of it." I went, "It's been there most of the day. It's absolutely fine. It's not going to move." And then she started jumping up and down on the bed, shouting at the spider to go away. And of course, the spider didn't move. And she just went, "Mum, can spiders hear? Do they have ears?" And I ended up writing at midnight that night a book about whether spiders have ears. And it was a rhyming story. And then the next day I got onto Google and I looked at, how do they hear? And I looked at all the science behind it. And I thought, actually, do you know what? That rhyme is actually scientifically accurate. And so therefore I started writing, and then the illustrations came into my head. And so I started drawing as well, because I could do all of this whilst I was recovering. And so I wrote my first book, and it was a children's book. And so then I had a friend who's a rocket scientist who I'd known for about 10 years at that point. And he said, the Yuri Gagarin anniversary is coming up, the 50th anniversary in 2011. How about writing a book about Gagarin? And so that's what I did. So I then started researching and got into the space industry and started talking to people who either knew Gagarin, knew about Gagarin, or had written about them or researched him. And I found that actually the networking that I did was with some absolutely superb people. And I just loved the industry. It's so friendly, so nice.
It really is. That's such a cool story. And do you know what? It makes me think again of the conversation I had with Al, part of the podcast. He was asked by someone in the audience, what advice would you have if I wanted to become an astronaut? And his advice was, I mean, first off, he said, you got to be able to tell jokes,
Yeah.
which I thought was just so Al.
You really do have to have a sense of humour.
Yeah. But he also said, look, I never thought I was going to be an astronaut. I just did what I enjoyed. And his advice was to pursue your passion, follow the thing that you're interested in, that maybe you're good at, but you're not going to be good at anything if you don't enjoy what you're doing. So, and that's, his was flying, yours was furniture restoration.
Well, anything artistic or creative for me, to be fair. Yeah,
and that
but
I'm
with him in that advice is, you do what you love, and if you find an industry that you can work in, you find your niche and you do it.
So what was it like hanging out with Al? You spent 5 years touring around with him. What was it like?
It was such a laugh. Really, really fun. Um, Al was very laid back for a lot of it, and so therefore, we'd go to all sorts of places, and if he wanted to go somewhere, he'd go somewhere. But he was such a nice guy. He took me to the Kennedy Space Center one day, and he's going around. He's got his jacket on, and he says, if I don't wear this jacket, nobody will know who I am. And so he took it off, and we wandered around a bit, and nobody paid him the blindest bit of attention. He put it back on again, and everyone's sort of like going like this and looking at his badge, and it's like, is that you then? And he's like, yeah, that's me. He wanted to take us on a tour, on the bus tour, and he was a celebrity there. He could have gone to the front of the line. We could have been first on the bus, but we didn't. We stood in line like everybody else, and we were going up and down the rows and chatting with anybody who was either side of us. It was just brilliant because he's such a nice guy.
He really, really is.
Yeah.
And so many wicked sense of humour, and one of, I think, the absolute best laughs that I've ever heard from any human. I mean, his laugh sounds really naughty, actually. Was he ever
it's
trouble?
Very much like Sid James.
It is, yeah. Was he ever trouble when you were on tour?
Oh yeah, quite a lot. No, he as he said, you need a sense of humour. You needed to tell jokes, and he did. He made lots of people laugh, and he found the fun in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
you were talking about the jacket that he very famously wore everywhere to show that he was, to signify that he was this Apollo astronaut. You've actually got one of those jackets behind you. I can see on the door.
Yes.
That's actually Al's jacket.
It's one of Al's jackets, yeah. So he had several. He had the ones that he used to wear, which had his badge. Hang on, let me just grab this photograph from here. So there, so you can see that the patches are on the opposite side to the one that's behind me. So the one that's behind me is actually one from a collection that he was making, and there's some that have been produced and they're being sold now. So if they go to Al's website, you can actually purchase a replica of Al's jacket.
I didn't know that, and I think I might be visiting that website quite soon. I was going to ask as well, what do you think? Because obviously there's a huge impact that he's had on so many people in his life. He was an amazing educator, really passionate about inspiring and talking to young people in particular, and we could talk about the scholarship he's left behind in just a moment. But what do you think is his legacy? What's he left behind for the next generation?
Oh, crikey. I think his main legacy is, as you've said, his inspiration and the amount of people that he met and spoke to and inspired and engaged with, especially the children. There's so many children that he's met and that will never forget that meeting. And yeah, that for me is his legacy.
Yeah, I agree. And there is a scholarship that has been set up in his name, isn't there? The Endeavour Scholarship?
That's right, yes. So the Endeavour Scholarship was set up with a company called Coleman Worldwide Incorporated over in the States, and Al actually launched it with them last year. So when we were at New Scientist Live, when you met Al, they just launched the UK scholarship with the RAF. So if you want to know more about that, it's better to go to the Endeavour Scholarship information, which I'm assuming you're going to have all that information on your site.
Well, yeah, you say that. We have got links. They're in the show notes for the podcast. If you go to our unspaceagency.earth website, then there are links for all of those things. But there's a whole page on that scholarship on Al's site, I know, which will link out there. And I think it's an extraordinary, beautiful legacy that he's left for all of us.
Absolutely.
And this is a mini series. This is the first. You're our first guest on this sort of mini series that we're calling The Future. So, as well as telling stories from the past, like Al's adventure to the moon in 1971 and how that inspired us, we're also looking to the future, which I know Al was really excited about. When I spoke to him, he was very clear, and I know he's spoken a lot about, in some ways, how he was slightly disappointed, and lots of people were, that NASA didn't continue to explore deeper into space. We kind of got stuck in low Earth orbit with the International Space Station, which is amazing, and yet we are due to go back to the moon. So, Vix, what do you know about future moon missions? What are the missions that you think Al would be excited about happening?
Gosh, what would he be excited by? Oh, do you know, there's the Artemis mission, and I think that's probably the one that he would be most excited about, because they're wanting to send humans back to the moon. And of course, Al was very much an advocate of human spaceflight. And that's, as far as I'm aware, the only moon mission that is planned in the near future that is sending people back. But, you know, there's loads of missions that are doing robotic exploration on the moon. There's the Luna 27.
Yep.
The Lunar Globe, which is... so the Luna 27 is with ESA. And I think there's a UK...
There is some UK involvement, because obviously,
right?
yeah, even though we are faced with the looming reality of Brexit, we are still working with European friends and partners, with the European Space Agency. I know there's lots of really cool science and robotics that are being done by UK researchers. So our friend of the Space Agency, Simeon Barber, who was involved with the Beagle mission back in the day, is working on instruments that are going to go to the moon. I'm trying to persuade him to take Mini Jon with him. Yeah. He might be a bit big for that mission. But I know the Artemis missions as well, and that it was NASA only announced or confirmed last week. What all of us were hoping for was that it shouldn't need to be done, but confirming that they're the next boots on the moon, which we think will be in 2024, that the first next set of boots on the moon will be filled by a woman. My money, for what it's worth, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, gamble responsibly, or don't gamble at all, would be that will be our friend Sunny Williams, who was on this show a few weeks ago. I'm betting that it will be her that will be first on the moon. Yeah,
that'll be good.
I've got a question for you from Agent Cadet Moonrock and Team Leader 42, aka Amanda and Annabelle, who I am sure you have probably met at some stage, because they go to all the space stuff.
I was sitting next to Annabelle in your show at New Scientist Live.
She's so cool. Do you know what? She comes to the shows whenever she can, which isn't easy for her, but she always brings me a little treat. I often get sweets. Thanks, Annabelle. But they wanted to know, Vix, if you could travel anywhere in the world and outer space, where would it be and why? For example, Annabelle says she would like to visit the USA and Paris, maybe Disneyland, I'm imagining. I mean, Paris is very cool for lots of reasons. And she would like to go to the ISS. Where would you go?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would like to be a passenger on an intergalactic spaceship, as in like a cruise ship type thing.
Intergalactic.
Yes. I'd like to do an intergalactic cruise. That's what I would really like to do. So as soon as we get space tourism up and running, I'm on there in proper, not just going around the world, not just going up to the edge of space, proper going out past the planets, out into proper space.
Love it.
That would be superb.
I love that, because often we get people obviously being very realistic. This is sadly in mine and Vic's your lifetimes, highly unlikely to be able to go into galactic, but we can imagine. I mean, that would be super cool. And when
that's where it all starts, though, isn't it? The imagination.
Yes, it's true. It's how satellites came into being, which is another story for another time. And if, when we're allowed to maybe go out again a bit more, because obviously at the moment we're all trying to look after ourselves and look after each other because we're living with the coronavirus pandemic in the world at the moment. But once we are able to maybe travel some more, where in the world are you hoping, or where are you imagining you might want to go in the future?
Oh, I'd like to go back to Italy. Florence is one of my favourite places. Oh, crikey. Egypt, I'd like to see the pyramids.
Oh, yeah. See, it's difficult though, isn't it? Just the idea of even imagining traveling anywhere at the moment.
Yeah,
it's,
it is. It's really tough.
it's more realistic and easier to imagine in
But you know
traveling to
what?
other galaxies.
Yes, yeah. I think it's easier to imagine going to other galaxies. But no, I think I'd also the first thing I'd do is travel over to the States to meet all the people who also miss Al as much as I
Oh,
do.
that's so. Oh, you have as well in the past. You mentioned that you've written some books.
Yes.
You mentioned the Gagarin book. This is one of mine and Mini Jon's favourite books, Dogs in Space, which I would really recommend to anyone if you wanted to know about the history of dogs in space. Vix, how did you end up? It was interesting to find out how you randomly ended up writing a book about Yuri Gagarin.
Hmm.
What led you to dogs in space?
Partly the Gagarin stuff again. So all the research that I did for Gagarin, I met the space curator at the Science Museum and other people who were very interested in Russian space flight. And it was actually Doug Millard at the Science Museum who got a call from the publishers, Hachette, saying, you know, we'd like to write this book. Can you recommend anybody? And he recommended me.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well done. We really like that. We did ask some of our cadets and agents for questions about dogs in space. I don't know how well equipped you are to answer this one.
Try me.
Because you've written there about Strelka and Belka. All of that in the book, it's all true, right?
Yes.
It's amazing. And it's a great book. Honestly, recommend to anyone to get it. But Cadet Sam would like to know, were the dogs who went into space trained to poop and wee in certain places, or was it just accepted that this would float around in their little spacesuits?
Do you know, that's a really good question. Because in the early days, they didn't have spacesuit. Well, they had space outfits, and they did defecate in that, and they did wee in that, and but those early dogs, they could be male or female. But obviously, male dogs try to cock their leg, and that's their natural thing. And you can't really do that when you're in a spacecraft and in a spacesuit. So the majority of dogs that ended up going into orbit were females. And they were never in space for long enough. Because, I mean, if you imagine a dog, they go to bed, they sleep for 7-8 hours, and they don't poo in their sleep. So, you know, the amount of time that those dogs actually spent in space, they didn't actually have to poo, the majority of them. So, but if they did wee, then yes, it would just be absorbed by their spacesuit like a nappy, I suppose.
Well, that's a really clear and comprehensive answer. I hope you're happy with that, Cadet Sam, and pleased with yourself.
I love that.
And look, before you go, because you are a busy person, it's World Space Week starting on the 4th of October.
That's correct, yeah.
And you are the coordinator for World Space Week in the UK, right?
I'm the coordination manager on behalf of the British Interplanetary
Society, which is the best named. Yeah, that's right. It's just the best named society in the world, the British Interplanetary Society. What is World Space Week, please, Vix, and how can we get involved?
Okay, so World Space Week is a week-long celebration of all things space-related, and the purpose of it is to try to educate, engage with the widest public possible, and to celebrate the benefits of space exploration and science. So the way you can get involved is by doing something space related throughout the week between the 4th of October to the 10th of October. So each year, the World Space Week Association give themes to the year. So this year's theme is satellites and how they improve life. So if you wanted to do a Zoom party or a house party or something like that, and theme it around satellites, you could do a satellite quiz or a word search, or you could just have a party where you dress up and talk space in an evening, or
Sounds
absolutely anything.
Brilliant to me.
I mean, this year it's slightly more complicated because we haven't got those physical events for people to go to, but there are so many things happening online this year that actually it might be more successful this year because we can dip into the other countries and see what they're doing, because it's all going to be online, it's all going to be virtual, with maybe, I think there's a couple of astronomical societies that are actually doing a little bit of public outreach in their places, but of course sticking to COVID guidelines and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's how you can get involved, is to either attend or create your own event.
Cool. Okay, MJ, how do you fancy getting involved with some World Space Week action? You want to do it? Okay, cool. How can we find out about it? There must be a website, I guess.
Yeah, so the UK, we've got our own website, which is www.bis-space.com.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put
/world WSW.
We've got our Missions and Communications Officer, Javaria, looking after the chat for us. Javaria, if you could put that into the chat here, and then we'll put it into the show notes afterwards, because we have to take the comments off at the end because of YouTube guidelines for children and keeping everyone safe. So we'll put them into the show notes at the bottom about where we can all find out about World Space Week stuff. Vix, thank you so much for taking the time joining us today, talking about Al, who I know that you, more than many of us, because of your closeness with him, will be missing a lot. I'm going to get to the website and get one of those jackets. How can we stay in touch with you, please? What's the best place to keep in touch with you? Any of the socials?
I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook. I do have an Instagram account, but I very rarely use it. So if anybody wants to teach me how to use it, I'll be all ears.
So if we just look you up, names on screen right now, just look up Vix on Twitter, it sounds like, and Facebook, the best places. If you've got any questions about dogs in space that aren't about poop and wee, then get in touch. And Vix, I'm sure, will be happy to answer those. And anything about World Space Week as well, because she's in charge of that. Vix, thank you so much. I will look forward to speaking to you again very soon, I hope.
Yes.
All right.
My pleasure. Thanks, John.
Bye, Vix. Take care. Bye. Oh, the brilliant Vix Southgate there, everybody. That was cool, right, MJ? Yeah, I really like Vix and all the work that she's doing. And it really was. If you find out more about Al Worden, his incredible life, and just who he was, go over to our website, listen to the podcast at unspaceagency.earth. It's a really great listen. I'm really pleased with how that conversation went. Let us know what you think of it. If you think it's as good as I think it is, you can stay in touch with us at any of the socials. We're at unspaceagency on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And please do take a moment to subscribe here and click the thumbs up button. It really helps us out, and we will look forward to seeing you again for more Live from the Space Shed soon.
Up with it, up with it, up with it, up with it.